Yes, I'm Hazel from the Philippines. I'm just curious about the verse, so I'd like to ask Brother Eli. In First John chapter 1 verse 3, John said,
Which we have seen and heard, declare we unto you, that ye also may have fellowship with us. And truly our fellowship is with the Father, and with His Son, Jesus Christ. So what's your question about this verse, Hazel?
John said, the things that we saw and we heard, we write unto you. Now, if we look at the scenario in Matthew chapter 17:1 up to 5, when Jesus climbed to the mountain, he was with Peter, John, and James. We can see that Matthew was not there. But my question is, how come that this scenario was written in the book of Matthew? Considering what John said in First John chapter 1 verse 3, it should be, this scenario, it should be written in the book of John. So, it's just a curiosity, why did this scenario written in the book of Matthew, and how does Matthew wrote this verse, considering that he is not in there at that time? So it should be, for me, it should be read in the book of John. That is my question, Brother Eli.
That's a very nice and very intelligent question. I appreciate your calling us and asking this question. And it will be also for the benefit of others who may not have been thinking of this question. These are the questions I admire most, Brother Joseph. These questions are being very rarely asked to me. The answer is very nice also from the Bible. The verse that you have read in First John chapter 1 verse 3 tells us the things which we have seen and heard, write or declare we unto you. So what they are writing or declaring are the things that they have seen and heard. Maybe they have heard, but they have not seen. They also must write. Maybe they have seen, but they have not heard. They also must write. See? It doesn't mean that the two things must be hand in hand for them to write, seen and heard. They can write only those things that they have seen and have not heard, or the things that they have heard, even if they did not see it, they can write them also. Now, the question is, why is it that this verse or this scenario was written by Matthew when
he was not there?
It was only Peter, John, and
James.
Why is it that Matthew is writing this scenario? You see, let us read the book of Luke chapter 1 verses 1 up to 3.
Forasmuch as many have taken in hand to set forth in order a declaration of those things which are most surely believed among us, even as they delivered them unto us, which from the beginning were eyewitnesses and ministers of the word. It seemed good to me also, having had perfect understanding of all things from the very first, to write unto thee in order, most excellent Theophilus.
The evangelist Luke was not there also. He was not there. But he wrote. Let us read in the book of Luke 9:28.
And it came to pass, about 8 days after these sayings, he took Peter and John and James, and went up into a mountain to pray. And as he prayed, the fashion of his countenance was altered, and his raiment was white and glistering. And behold, there talked with him 2 men, which were Moses and Elijah, who appeared in glory, and spake of his disease which he should accomplish at Jerusalem. But Peter and they that were with him were heavy with sleep, and when they were awake, they saw his glory, and the two men that stood with him. And it came to pass, as they departed from him, Peter said unto Jesus, Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 tabernacles, one for thee, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah, not knowing what he said. While he thus spake, there came a cloud, and overshadowed them, and they feared as they entered into the cloud. And there came a voice out of the cloud, saying, This is my beloved Son, hear him.
It was Luke who wrote this book. Luke was a Gentile. He was not with them. In fact, Luke wrote the exact things also that Matthew wrote. Why did Luke write these things? Let us go back to 1:1 and 3 of the book of Luke. For as much as many have taken in hand to set forth in order a declaration of those things which are most surely believed among us, even as they delivered them unto us, which from the beginning were eyewitnesses and ministers of the word, it seemed good to me also, having had perfect understanding of all things, from the very first to write unto thee in order, most excellent Theophilus. Meaning, the intention of Luke writing the things that have been accomplished during the time of the Lord Jesus Christ was to deliver this message to Theophilus, who by implication in his name is also not Israelite. He's not a Jew. The word Theophilus denotes that he may be of the Greek race. So, what necessitates Luke to write? Because he wants to write to tell the story of Jesus to a fellow, maybe a fellow Greek, because Luke is not a Jew. He also is believed to be a Greek. The word Luke implies that he is a Greek person. That's why he is writing to a fellow non-Israelite. And what gave him the authority to write? It was the Lord Jesus Christ who gave these writers the authority to write. Let us root it up from the writings of the Apostle Paul. In the book of 1 Corinthians 14:37, it says,
If any man think himself to be a prophet or spiritual, let him acknowledge that the things that I write unto you are the commandments of the Lord.
The apostles wrote upon the instructions or the commandments of the Lord. So they are writing not because of their own volition. They are moved by the Lord to write, and they were commanded by the Lord to write. Matthew is an apostle, and an apostle is a witness to Christ. So for Matthew to witness for Christ, he must also write, although he was not there, but he heard the story from Peter, John, and James. Remember, the verse that you used is, the things that we have seen and heard. Matthew heard the story from James, Peter, and John. So he was able to write it. And nobody of the apostles present in that scenario disputed what the Apostle Matthew have written. In fact, it was affirmed by Peter, one of those persons present. Let us read in the book of 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 17.
For he received from God the Father honor and glory, when there came such a voice to him from the excellent glory, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. And this voice which came from heaven we heard when we were with him in the holy mount.
This is the declaration of one of the eyewitnesses. Remember, there were three of them, Peter, James, and John. And it was Peter who confirmed what the Apostle Matthew have written in his Gospel. Peter said on verse 17, he received from God the Father honor and glory when there came such a voice to him from the excellent glory, "This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased." This voice which came from heaven we heard. See, they did not see the Father speaking. But what they hear, they wrote. We heard when we were with him in the Holy Mount. So there are two things that we must consider if we read the writings of the apostles. Things that we have seen and heard. It doesn't follow that they must have seen and heard. They can write of the things that they have seen. They can write on the things that they have heard. And even if they were not present on the scenario, if they hear it from the Lord Jesus Christ or from fellow apostles, they are obliged to write in order to complete the story. Even if they are not eyewitnesses, they have to ask from eyewitnesses, as what the evangelist Luke have done. He inquired vigorously. He investigated all matters from eyewitnesses. That's why he was able to write a complete gospel or story of the Lord Jesus Christ, because what he was able to investigate and hear from eyewitnesses, he recorded in the book of Luke. That is the answer to that question.